Been a few weeks, but welcome back to Holding Court here with First State Hoops Report founding editor and Holding Court host Chris Stevens. Hopefully, you all have been doing well out there. This last full month of summer. This is actually the last week coming up. This week coming up, it is the last week without any official high school activity until next June. Everything that's like summer league, AAU, travel ball, whatever you want to call it, that's kind of considered off the books. So we can't really count that. But high school football, because there's a week zero, I never thought I'd live to see the day that Delaware high school football would have a week zero. Honestly, I didn't think we'd ever have a week zero in college football, but that's the way it is nowadays. The teams that'll be playing the weekend of Labor Day, because I know there's a classic going on down at Abysinio Stadium on August 31st. So those teams that have games August 31st through September 2nd will be starting practice next Monday, which is August 7th. And then after that, everyone else and every other sport starts August 14th. So yeah, summer's over, man. It's time for the kids to get back to, the structure of their high school programs. And we'll still have some basketball, obviously. That's obviously why we're here talking about Holding Court. And if you're wondering why I'm wearing pink, no, I did not go to see the Barbie movie, and I probably don't plan to. But did want to shout out Coach Brendan Mann of Middletown High School and Summer League 2023 for having me out at their championship game on Wednesday. Greatly appreciated. Very good basketball, by the way. DMA and Odessa played in the title game. Odessa, of course, has added someone new and very talented. That's Delaney Burrows, who, of course, averaged a good 20 points a game her first 3 years at Red Lions. She's going to spend her senior year at Odessa. That makes Odessa a very interesting team because if you guys don't know, there is going to be some realignment coming up this coming high school year. Odessa and Christiana are moving up to Flight A, and Hodson is returning to Flight B. So that should be interesting in various sports. But for the basketball perspective, I think Odessa might be a team that could challenge Appo and St. George's at the top. Appo and St. George's at the top of Flight A. So that'll be interesting. Hodson coming down to Flight B makes Flight B much more interesting because last 2 years you've just had Howard, AI, and nobody else. Now you get Howard, AI, and Hodson. So it's going to be very interesting in Flight B as well on the girls' side. Going to be interesting on the boys' side, too, because I saw Odessa about 3 or 4 times down at over at Newcastle Powell in the Crozier League, and they've got some talent, man. They have got some talent, and they have a new coach that, folks are looking forward to seeing what he can do with the program. So that should be an interesting team moving up to Flight A as well, even though everybody's probably going to already pick Middletown and William Penn, and they should because Penn has reloaded. Middletown has reloaded. So if you haven't seen the bits and pieces that we posted on the YouTube channel from last week's Middletown Penn game at the Crozier, you should go look at that and see that that's going to be a fun game in Flight A and possibly in the state tournament. Hopefully we get that game in the Final Four. I did a too early top 10 a few weeks ago. If you asked me to do a too early Final Four for the boys, it would be Sal's, Middletown, Penn. Who would be the fourth team? That's the question because it's wide open right now. You've got Caravelle, you've got Sanford, you've got Cape's going to be good, Polytech. Howard, obviously, return some talent. Sanford's still going to be very good. I mean, you can Tower Hill, you can throw a bunch of teams out there for that fourth spot. But the immediate 3 that I think of on the boys' side would be Middletown, Sal's, and William Penn. But overall, just wanted to get back in front of you guys and talk a little bit about basketball because I've been missing in action for the last 2 or 3 weeks. After the previous episode, because once I found out that the Crozier was coming back and that the Summer League was going on and Duffy's Hope was still going on, I still had a lot of basketball to get to. And I still found time to go see the greatest living performer of all time over at Lincoln Financial Field on July 12th. Yes, I went to see Beyonce. It was the greatest concert ever. That was my first concert since the pandemic ended, actually. The pandemic started. The pandemic is not over. Hey, there's another COVID surge coming up. Y'all wear your masks. You get vaccinated because we can't be running around here, spreading this thing out even more further than it's already spread. So yes, COVID is still going on, believe it or not. So please take care of yourselves and those around you. But yeah, since the pandemic started, that was my first concert because the last concert I went to took my mother to see Maze and Frankie Beverly at the Dell for her birthday in 2019, and then I got busy with other things. Actually, that was the first year I started First State Hoops Report. So I didn't really get to go to concerts during the winter. And then, of course, the pandemic happens in March of 2020. And it's like, whoa, now what? And then, the last 3 years have just been, getting back to normal. So this was my first concert since that. So that's why I was off the grid that week, because that concert took a lot out of me. And then, of course, the first weekend of the Crozier, and I wanted to be ready for that. So, and then last week I was just like, you know what? I just don't feel like doing it this week. So this week is I ran all my errands ahead of time. I've gotten all my stuff ready. If I want to head over to the Crozier today, I'm still waiting for a schedule, because as we're recording this on Sunday morning, nobody has posted a schedule for Sunday, July 30th yet. Hopefully somebody has one, because it's 8:20 a.m. right now, and the games are scheduled to start at 12 o'clock. So hopefully somebody posts a schedule for the Crozier. If anybody sees this, by the time this is recorded, it should be up by like 9:30. So if you have a Crozier schedule, please hit us up. FirstStateHoopsReport@gmail.com. FS Hoops Report on the Twitter machine. First State Hoops Report on Instagram and Facebook. Just look for us there, because we'd like to come out today, even though I've had a busy week with my other job. But anyway, yes, basketball is still a ways off from the high school perspective, because the season starts November 30th, and today is July 30th. So yes, we still have 4 months. We still have 4 full months before basketball officially can return for a state champion with the eye towards the state championship. But one thing that I find interesting in the summer travels that I've been able to see, I've been to Duffy's Hope, I've been to the Summer League, I've been to Crozier, is that it's good that this week we got to talk to AJ English, the AJ English, the original AJ English, the one that played Howard in the 80s. He is starting a segment of free basketball camps. And of course, he started the first ones this week at his alma mater, Howard High School of Technology. So we got to talk to AJ, talk about, being able to give back, starting that at Howard, talking to head boys basketball coach Rasan Matthews Sr. about it. It's a pretty cool day. Had an interesting little bit of washedness, if you will, at that camp, because I hadn't picked up a basketball in God knows how long. I love the game, but I was never, as good as the people that I covered or played against or, grew up with, but I still love to shoot. I missed everything. I didn't make one shot, y'all. And a young camper, because the kids were 8 to 12, I was so frustrated. Like, I was hitting stuff off the side of the rim, the backboard, even hit a couple air balls. It was like I was a one-man HVAC unit. And this kid walks up to me and says, "Don't worry, you'll get it." And when kids have sympathy for the fact that your jumper is broken, you got to get back in the gym. You got to start getting back to the court. You got to start getting some shots up. So once this hot streak cools off, I'm going to start heading back out to the park and get my jumper back up, man, because that was embarrassing. Like, I literally picked up a ball thinking it was just going to flick off my wrist, and it flicked off my wrist, but it didn't get very far. So I got to start getting shots up again. But yeah, that was a fun week. That was a fun day on Thursday. Shout out to AJ English and the great kids and people at Howard High School of Technology for that camp. We had a good time covering that story. You can find that story on the First State Hoops Report website. So yeah, as I was saying, with AJ's camp, with Duffy's Hope, with the Crozier, with Summer League, it's nice that free options are starting to come back around again. Because to me, there's too much of people trying to make money off of kids, through the lens, through the facade of invitations and exclusiveness. And that's just one man's opinion. And I stand on my opinion, as I always do, and when I do these shows. So, you could charge. If you want to charge people, just say that. The same thing that, you're offering for a fee that people can find at a park or at a rec center like a Wilmington Powell, or at a league like, Sumher, where, because the Summer League was based the teams that was like around that area, around that Middletown area, because Hodson was there, Apple was there, Middletown, of course, hosted, Polytech was there, DMA was there, and I think Delcastle and St. George's were there in the beginning stages as well. I'm not sure, but by the time I got there for the championship game in the consolation games, it was Odessa, DMA, Middletown, Polytech, Hodson, and Adlo. But yeah, I mean, looking at the way this economy is going right now, like charging people hand over fist for anything just feels very selfish and grifty. And I'll just, leave it at that. But it's good that, free options are coming back around for different things like camps and leagues, because parents can't afford it, man. I mean, there are some that can, but there are some that, you want to still give your kids a chance to have a great summer. And, now that we're, free options are starting to come back around, because people are starting to be more realistic about the dire strait that we find ourselves in 2023 from a financial standpoint, because all of us are struggling. Trust me. The person that's doing this podcast right now is struggling, doing like 2 or 3 jobs at one time, even though granted they're not hard jobs. Like I literally get to sit in my house and do this stuff. So it's not like, I'm out there, on the chain gang. I'm not out there. I'm not down at, down at the Port of Wilmington or anything like that. I'm not, I'm not at the, Amazon warehouse or anything like that. I mean, but still, you got to have like multiple hustles to survive. And that stinks, because if this is the greatest country in the world, if you're one of those people who's offended by anybody talking bad about America, you can go ahead and just zip past this, or close the window to YouTube. Doesn't matter to me. But if this is supposed to be the greatest country in the world, we shouldn't be, people shouldn't have 2 and 3 jobs just to live. And they shouldn't definitely have to have 2 or 3 jobs just to make sure their kids have an enriching summer. So it's pretty cool that, AJ decided to do a free camp. It's cool that Duffy's League still exists. It's still that it's cool that the Crozier came back. So, just having these options. The only thing that I have a problem with, the only thing that still bothers me, and I talked about this with Coach Mann down at Middletown, is that it's still strange to me that coaches can't coach or train their athletes out of season, because there's a phrase that our elders used to use that is considered politically incorrect now, so I won't use that one, but I'll use an alternate version of it. And you probably know, once you hear the alternate version, you'll probably understand what the un-PC version is. There's too many cooks in the kitchen. There are too many cooks in the kitchen when it comes to these young people, learning to play whatever game or sport it is that they are trying to get, to the next level at. Like, you get coached during the season by high school coaches. Then you train, with a trainer sometimes during that season. And then out of season, you're with your trainer or your AAU coach or your summer league coach. And it's not the same thing, because there are so many different we all have different perspectives on life. And there's different perspectives in coaching as well, and training. And when you have a kid who's being coached by one person, trained by another, coached again by another, then when you get back into high school season, when, championships and things are on the line, they're trying to figure out whose advice they should, stick with. And that really doesn't help very much. So just being mindful of that, I really think that's one thing that DIA should, take a look at. And, David Baylor, is now the man in charge. Hopefully he can start to, maneuver around some things and figure out a way to, that these kids can not only, have the best high school experience possible, but still be able to train and, practice with an eye towards the future. And that future is probably better served working with the coaches that they work with from, I guess, August to May. That's what I'll say to high school season. Well, yeah, maybe you might as well say June, because the baseball championships usually end for all the first weekend in June. Same thing for softball championships are down at UD. So, yeah, from August to June, I feel like those are the coaches that, you should really be hitching your wagon to. But that's just one man's opinion. Again, as I say often on this podcast. Overall, we still have a lot to discuss, and it's still a lot in the throes of going on, because there's still, different, transfer things happening. New coaches are still being hired. Tatnall just hired Micah Edwards as their new girls coach. His daughter Tyler plays at Sanford. He played at University of Delaware. He was on the first. I remember him because he was on the first 2 UD championship teams that made it to the NCAA tournament. those teams had Micah Edwards, Robbie Johnson Sr., Alex Coles, Brian Pearl, Spencer Dunkley. Been around a long time, people. When you can start remembering teams from 30 years ago, you've been watching basketball in the state of Delaware a long time. Coach Edwards was on the first team. He was actually an assistant with Dan Burke at William Hughes men's team, the last few years. So that's an interesting change. So we've still got coaching changes going on. There's still transfer hearings going on. We understand that a young man who wanted to transfer out of Caravel actually has come back to Caravel and has been granted a final year of eligibility. So once we get more information on that, we'll be able to talk more on that. One thing that I want people to be mindful of is when I talk about people, kids and coaches in general terms for the most part, it's because I don't like talking about things that aren't set in stone. And I don't like putting names on people and putting targets on their back, because as strange as it is, high school sports, we already see it with college sports. College sports has already become commodified with NIL, and I don't have a problem with it. I'm not one of these people that thinks the world is ending or the sky is falling because kids get to make money off their name, image, and likeness. I'm not one of those kids. I'm not one of those people. People will say, you're getting the benefit of a free education, and it's like, well, they still have to go to practice. They still have to you have to earn a certain GPA to, be eligible to, play their sport or, participate in their sport. So, and NCAA has been making money hand over fist in the millions and billions off of these kids for the last 50 years. So I don't have a problem with a kid being sponsored by a restaurant or a car dealership or anything else. I actually wrote about this for HBCUsports.com. If I can remember, I'll link it in the description below. For the record, everything that you want to know about us, our Twitter feed, our email address, our Facebook page, our website, Instagram, all of that, once again, will be in the description below. And, I'm not one of those people that have a problem with kids making money, because if we as adults have to go out here and earn a living and, we expect kids to pull their weight, then they got to, then if they want to pull their weight the best way possible, by, profiting off of, being college athletes, then why not? Professional athletes profit off of being professional athletes. I don't see the issue. I really don't. But that's another story for another time. But in the meantime, high school sports has kind of become commodified in that sense as well. And, when you talk about kids transferring, you talk about coaches being brought in for the sole purpose of, getting kids or keeping kids. And, you have to be mindful of, putting people's names on things, because people get highly upset, strangely enough, when it comes to kids transferring and coaches moving to different places and coaches being dismissed and all of that. And as a journalist, you try and report the facts, but at the same time, you don't want to add fuel to the fire. Because a lot of people it's the strangest thing when you talk about kids transferring, you talk about coaching changes, it literally gets people up in arms. And I'm trying to have people remember, like, y'all, this is a game. These are kids. We can't ascribe the way some of y'all get real indignant when an athlete like a Saquon Barkley wants to get a pay raise because, running back I never thought I'd see the day that the position that was probably the most dynamic on the field would be obsolete. And that's pretty much what's happening with the running back position. Because I can tell you now that when I was coming along, the running backs that were great, like the Emmitt Smiths, the Barry Sanders, the Thurman Thomases, who else was great at that time? Yeah, I've been watching sports a very long time. Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, Thurman Thomas. Well, those are the big three. Those are the big three that I remember feeling like those are the guys that, I felt like were the beasts of their era when I started watching football. It was Emmitt, Barry, and Thurman. Those guys were dominant. And those guys would not, I don't know if they wouldn't have a place. And actually, the more I think about it, Tyreek Hill is just Barry Sanders playing in the track stands. That's really all it is. Tyreek Hill is Barry Sanders that, split wide. Same move set, same juke, same speed, same, stout squat physique. Tyreek Hill is just Barry Sanders with a wide receiver number and a wide receiver designation. But I never thought I'd see the day that running backs would be obsolete. It's the craziest thing in the world. And so that's why, I was talking about Saquon Barkley holding out because, running backs, they're going through it right now. But, we can't treat, the Saquon holding out got people really upset about, hey, you're making $10 million a year. You should report anyway and all of that. And people really get indignant about athletes of all levels being honest about their worth and their health and, their security and all of that. And when kids transfer at a high school level, it really gets people upset. And I'm like, y'all, this is a game. These are kids. Calm your jets. Whatever the reason is. And I've learned in my travels, really getting back into the nuts and bolts of journalism, especially at a local level, that a lot of people sort of want to inject their personal feelings about people, schools, and different situations into their analysis. And that's not healthy. Like, I rarely, if ever, inject my personal feelings into how I feel about a sport, an athlete, a coach, a school, because that's not what journalists do. I'm the only, I feel like I'm the last one that goes by the book. That isn't, working for the News Journal or Delaware State News or anybody like that. Everybody else that's like on this content creator buzz or outside of the margins, they still feel like, they can operate from a personal standpoint, and you can't do that and call yourself a journalist. That's just again, I call it like I see it. Like, if you can, talk, if you can, call for, a school to be, sanctioned because of something that happened outside of Delaware's jurisdiction, if you can, always, have snide remarks to say about schools, getting transfers that others may not, then you can't call yourself a journalist, because at this point you're just, sports talk radio. And that, is what it is. But, again, these are kids. These are kids that are 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. Projecting and ascribing whatever your personal feelings or issues are with the current state of the system, it's ridiculous. If you're that upset about the current state of the system, then my God, go to a school board meeting, go to a board of ed meeting, go to a council meeting if you want to, because there's so many people, there's blame to go around for why, public education in the fall of certain sports and certain schools in Delaware are the way they are. Like, you can look at the Reading building and see that they haven't done anything about education in God knows how long. You can go down to Dover and see that, charter schools and, faith-based institutions are getting more of the rub and the publicity than public schools are. So there's a lot of blame to go around, but don't blame the kids and their families. They're just doing what is best for them. So that's again, I talk about this every time I do a show because I feel like it's important. I feel like it's important, to stop, operating from these old ways of, we can talk about the old days, but it's like my man Big G said on The Wire. The thing about the old days, they're old days. They're not coming back. And this is coming from somebody who's a history, analyst, like, an amateur historian. Like, I have a newspapers.com subscription for the very purpose of looking up old all-state teams for basketball from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and so on. Because I still have plans for, First State Hoops Report and Holding Court, kind of being like a resource, for high school basketball here in Delaware. So, from a historical standpoint, yes, it was nice in the days when there were neighborhood rivalries, and you had Wilmington High versus Howard, you had Newark versus Glasgow versus Christiana, St. Mark's versus Salesiana, Dover versus Cesar Rodney, Cape versus Central, or Sussex Tech, or Laurel versus Woodbridge, and on, and Seaford, and on it goes. But that's not the way the landscape is shaped right now. That's not the way it goes. The way that kids can choice out. You have all these different institutions. Again, cooks in the kitchen. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And, Kids and families are doing what is best for them. Because if you have a kid that's dominant at, I'm just saying, man, dominant at like Dickinson, AI, Christiana Glasgow, and Concord or Mount Pleasant, but then, they can be seen at a Caravel or St. Elizabeth's or Slasium or Ursuline or Padua or an Appo, Middletown, Howard, Hodson, downstate, Dover, Smyrna. You gotta do what you gotta do. And putting that on the kids, putting your personal feelings on the kids is just ridiculous. If you're somebody that's 3 or in some cases 4 times their age, it's like, cool out. Just cool out. It's a sport. It's a game. It's for kids. It's just something that, I see too much of, and it just irritates the living bejesus out of me. But that's really all I had this week. Because again, I didn't feel comfortable because I hadn't done a show in 3 weeks, actually just 2 weeks period in just the last 2 weeks. But we're going from July 9th to July 30th, and that's officially 3 weeks. But yeah, we're off the last couple of weeks. Just coming back to kind of say, hey, how's everybody doing? There's this lady. I can't remember her TikTok handle, but she's this lady down in Louisiana that's really, like an outdoorsy type. Like she goes fishing, she goes home, she always starts her videos with like, hey, how you doing? How your mom and them and all of that. So that's just me saying, hey, how you doing? How your mom and them and all of that. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Before we get back into the real high school season for sports. Wow, football is a month away. Incredible. And I just want to remind the kids out there that are watching this, don't forget the student part of student athletes so we can see you on the field and on the court in 2023-24. That's something that I always say that, when we talk about sports out of the season, it's nice to talk about, but until we get into the actual season, we can't really say much because, things can change. A kid could, unfortunately, pray this doesn't happen. Someone gets hurt, or somebody, doesn't make the grade. You just have to be mindful of all these variables because kids are kids and life gives you curves on different days. So life throws your curveball on different days. So kids, don't forget the student part of student athlete. It's good to be able to actually, because I was covering SWAC Media Day for HBCU Sports. There was a coach that said, you're going to be a former athlete longer than you are an athlete. Because I was talking with Corey Burke from Howard High School, and I originally said that a basketball coach said, but then I remembered that, hey, a SWAC coach said that. You're going to be a former athlete longer than you're going to be an athlete. So please, keep your grades up. If you're at a vocational school, if you're at one of the Votex, be sure your shop or your career area is giving you what you need. And just be ready for life after sports because it happens. Life after sports happened for me after the final day of the 1998 regular season as a Howard High School football player who played maybe 4 games the entire season, maybe 15 minutes the entire season. I got 4 games. I played maybe 15 minutes the entire season. And that was the end of my high school athletic. That was the end of my athletic career. And of course, that was 25 years ago. And here I am, still involved in sports. Still very happy to be here. But yes, students, take care of your bodies. Take care of Marshawn Lynch said, take care of your mentals. Take care of your chicken. Your chicken in this case is your grades. And be ready to play. And that will do it for this edition of Holding Court. Once again, all the pertinent information will be in the description below. Thank y'all for watching. Don't know what we're going to talk about next week because, of course, summer leagues are going to be over for the most part. But we'll find something. We'll probably have a guest on. Who that guest will be, you'll have to wait and see. Till next time, people, take care of yourselves and each other.